Good everyone, welcome back to our next edition of Econ Talks. Gareth, we've been, of course, expecting and seeing some of those early signs of better economic trends coming through on the household side of the economy. Interest rates are coming down. Second half of this year is looking a lot better. But what we're seeing a little bit more immediately seems to be a bit more of an improvement across some parts of the primary sector. What's coming through at the moment that's top of mind?
Yeah, well, certainly it is a case of higher prices across the board for pretty much all except forestry of our primary sector. And we've got horticulture prices, which have been good throughout the last couple of years anyway, but staying at sustained high levels and continuing in some cases to push a bit higher as well. That's been joined, of course, more recently over the last 18 months or so by improvements, firstly in dairy prices, where we've got the payout now up to $10 a kilo for this season, but also through 2024 and into this year in terms of higher meat prices coming through as well. So whichever sort of part of the primary sector you're in, you are getting better revenue as a result of those higher prices, and that is a welcome relief given the sort of big increases in costs that producers have been facing, of course, through the pandemic, where we all faced higher cost of production and living, but particularly hard hit through the primary sector as well. You couple, of course, that growth or lift in terms of prices on a sustained basis with the fact that volumes are starting to pick up or have been picking up in terms of production as well. And take dairy, for example, we've seen roughly a 2% lift in dairy production volumes through the course of this season compared to the previous season. So it's a bit of a positive double whammy there. You've got high prices internationally because there's supply issues coming out of some other countries, so not as much supply internationally at the same time as we're actually being able to pump more product through into the international market. And of course, dairy is not the only part of the economy or the sector where that growth has been occurring.
No, that's right. I mean, you look across the board, you highlighted the likes of those higher meat prices coming through. Beef, of course, in a very good position and very strong on demand into the US. We have been seeing better pricing, but also fairly strong output coming through there as well. The likes of lamb also in a much better position price-wise. Mutton back to an all right price position, which is still a pretty big improvement on the dire straits it was in, a year ago. So all of those prices lifting up. On the horticulture side, yes, we've seen some of those stronger prices, but volume lifts have been substantial as well. The likes of kiwi fruit export volumes are up 33% over the 12 months to February. The likes of apple volumes are up as well, continuing to correct from that hard hit from Cyclone Gabrielle. Even a number of other products, cherries and the like, seeing some pretty big increases. So across the board, quite a lot coming through. And like you say, I mean, the likes of dairy, that $10 milk price means that you're talking an extra $4.5 billion in spending this season. Now, not all of that is going to go on out into the direct economy. Some of it's quite rightly going to be used to pay down debt. But for a lot of farmers, it is a better position where you're not only seeing those increases in revenues, but like you said, those cost increases have started to level out. They haven't dissipated, they haven't left, but they've stopped increasing. You look at the likes of those on-farm costs from the expenses price index, things are up about 28% or so over the last sort of 4.5 years, but they have started to stabilize and in fact they've ever so slightly started to drop there. There is still a bit of a concern, though, going forward with the likes of production and output in the primary sector. Conditions across the North Island are dry. You start to see medium scale adverse events, effectively drought-ish conditions coming through for a number of areas, the likes of parts of Northland, the Waikato, over in sort of Bay of Plenty and further south through the likes of Taranaki, even the top of the South Island. There's a lot of parts of the country that are in a drier spot. And it's interesting because you do start to see that a bit coming through in the production figures, just early so far. But you have seen higher kill volumes for meat coming through in the North Island because, well, there's not as much feed. You sort of, have to do something with the animals. In the South Island, there's both lower killing, which seems to be a function of course, pretty good pasture cover. You don't need to kill off at the moment, but also some lower animal numbers over time too. What was interesting, digging further into some of the numbers, was the fact that that there has been a big push in recent times to import more feed. PKE imports into New Zealand are up about a third over the 12 months to February, but just the last 3 months, December, January, February, compared to the same time a year ago, 73% increase, really big increase coming through, as obviously there's some concern there. That's both additional pricing pressure and cost pressure that's starting to come through, but obviously starts to make you a little bit concerned about what happens through the middle of winter if there's not enough feed, and if, again, it's a bit harder to start to come about some of the production. I mean, this is not the only area, Gareth, where we're a little bit worried as we go through the middle of the year that drier conditions and other challenges in the sector might be not the only thing that we grapple with.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about those drier conditions, and for dairy, for example, it is very late in the season, so you wouldn't be too worried about your production volumes in that respect. But looking forward, of course, if you're not getting the grass growth going into winter, then you don't really have much to feed the cows coming out the other side into spring as well, until you get that spring grass growth starting to come through. So there may be sort of a bit of a hampering there in terms of production volumes for dairy through the start of next season. And of course, we know if you've got those kill numbers higher through the North Island in particular, as you mentioned, then your sort of stocking levels heading into next season, and therefore the lamb numbers and the calf numbers through 2025 into 2026 will not be as good either. So it could negatively impact on growth through there. Of course, that whole situation comes on top of the dryness also weighing in terms of electricity prices and what energy prices might do through coming months if there's not enough water in the lakes. That's not necessarily just something that affects the agricultural sector. Obviously, the rest of the economy felt the effects of that through last year as well. So again, just a few clouds hanging over some of those sort of growth prospects. And you put over the top of that, of course, just the uncertainty around the global economy and the potential for tariffs, particularly again around the agricultural sector that Trump has signalled could well be coming in over the next couple of weeks or so. That again must just be adding to sort of some concern that you would think. Looking forward at the moment, yes, provincial economies, there is momentum there, and they do look like they're going to be a significant contributor to the New Zealand economic recovery through the course of 2025. But if things do start to sort of worsen across a whole multitude of different factors that are just looking a bit shaky at the moment, then you do start to have a little bit less confidence about that flowing through into the sort of magnitude or speed of the economic recovery later this year and into 2026 that we might otherwise have been looking for. So as economists, we like to find the negatives in things, don't we? On the verge of recovery and trying to find the reasons that it might not occur.
But I think that is important because there are, clear risks around that. And I think you look at the primary sector and, there is a lot of confidence and certainly almost building expectation that not only do we have a current $10 payout for dairy at the moment, but actually that continues into next season too. Now, it's very, very early times for those sort of predictions to come out. And although I think they're completely justified right here, right now, again, whether or not they will actually be fulfilled, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, a lot of big changes that could come through before we get there. You're right that the rural parts of the economy have been a much stronger driver of activity in recent times and have been trying to partly offset the weakness that you're seeing, particularly in metro urban areas. But again, just a little bit of caution that we've always got around how persistent some of that strength might be. One final top tip, if you do find yourself looking through the numbers, beware of the February 2025 figures. They look like they're down on a year ago. Just remember that there were 28 days in February 25, 29 because it was a leap year last year. So you do have to be a little bit careful about some of the ups and downs because milk production technically was down on the month, but when you adjusted for day numbers, actually still in a pretty good position. So we'll talk all about the different statistical quirks, but also more importantly, the rest of the primary sector outcomes, how those prices continue to go, what production volumes do, and importantly, what export markets do. Will tariffs have an effect? Will global growth have an effect on that? And to what degree on one of our future editions of Econ Talks?